This tiny vial holds the most expensive color in human history. Let's talk about it. A couple weeks ago, I packed a carry-on, left my little basement apartment in Utah, and flew over 2,000 miles to New York City. Why? To visit this tiny little art store, Kramer Pigmente. My mission? To fulfill a dream I used to think was impossible. Own a sample of the world's most expensive color. This is Tyrian purple, a dark reddish purple pigment over 3,000 years old and worth over 45 times its weight in gold. That means to make a tube of oil paint like this one, it would cost over $100,000. And to make a nice impasto painting, say the size of Starry Night, yeah, that would cost you over $1 million for the paint alone. Tyrian purple is quite literally the reason why we associate royalty and wealth with the color purple, so you may be surprised to learn that, in my opinion, the price is actually one of the least interesting things about it. Listen, I've been obsessed with Tyrian purple since I first started this channel, but the real reason I find this color so interesting isn't the price tag, it's the source. Because unlike other rare and expensive pigments that are made from gemstones or complex chemical processes, Tyrian purple comes from a rather smellier source. Let's let past me explain a little bit. Why, good afternoon. Did you know that the most expensive color in the world is made from snilk, aka snail milk? Yeah, I didn't think so. Well, let's talk about it. Okay, confession. I kinda lied to you in this video. It's not really snilk, it's more like snookus. Snail mucus. Tyrian purple, the most expensive pigment in the known universe, is made from what's effectively snail loogies. At this point in the video, you probably have some questions. Why did anyone do this? How did they do it? Why the crap is it so expensive? And perhaps most importantly, does Tyrian purple really smell that bad? Well, we'll get into that in just a second, but first, a quick word from traveler. You seek knowledge, or perhaps just the most interesting book you've ever heard of. You've come to the right place. Feast your eyes upon the book. The ultimate guide to rebuilding a civilization. Whether the gods have struck down your city or you just want a bangin' coffee table book full of weird and interesting facts, this is the book for you. It holds centuries of hidden knowledge, from pigeon mail to edible plants to how to make your own paint. It blends ancient history with modern science and art in an entertaining format fit for adventurers of all reading levels. But this book is not just a guide, it is an artifact. A work of art. A gift so perfect, it might finally earn your mother's approval. Or you could just buy it for yourself. It's really cool and I'm not judging. And one last thing. If you like your side quests a bit more puzzling, behold, the Octopolis puzzle. This 1,000-piece steampunk masterpiece is a fine addition to any adventurer's lair. Or nerd cave. But beware, if you cancel your weekend tavern plans because you simply can't stop puzzling, that's on you. So be on your way, brave wanderer. Scan this rune or click the link in the description to add Hungry Mind's wondrous wares to your inventory before your civilization ends. Or, before they run out of stock. And may your civilization rise again, one beautifully illustrated page at a time. Welcome back. So before we fly across the country and purchase the world's most expensive paint, it seems fair to let its strange, smelly origin story have its time in the spotlight. Or drying in the sun, as you'll come to hear about. So here's the deal. People first started making Tyrian purple dye around the 16th century BCE in the ancient Phoenician city of Tyre. And I say around the 16th century BCE because no one knows exactly when Tyrian purple was invented. According to ancient Phoenician mythology, it was discovered by a dog. Melkart, god of Tyre, was out walking with his lover, Tyros. Their dog bit into a sea snail and its mouth turned purple. Tyros demanded a dress in that color. Boom. Purple industry born. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Dog bites snail, snail releases bright purple ooze, Tyrian purple is born. Woo! But the process of making Tyrian purple is actually a lot messier than just kind of squeezing a snail like a juice box. Instead, people had to extract the mucus from the dye glands of several very specific species of predatory murex sea snails. And you can do this by gently poking them, but most people just smash them.
Double smash.
But here's what's weird. Rather than coming out already super dark and pigmented like squid ink, the fresh goo that comes from these snails' hypobranchial glands isn't even purple in the first place. It's actually colorless. This toxic goo only really turns purple through a wildly long process that, for the most part, has been lost to history for thousands of years. The dyeing industry throughout time has been famous for being extremely secretive, and the ancient Phoenicians were no different. According to an article released by the BBC, accounts of how colorless snail slime was transformed into the dye of legends are vague, contradictory, and sometimes obviously mistaken. Aristotle himself said the mucus glands came from the throat of a purple fish. Good try there, buddy, but I'm pretty sure a snail is not a fish. Each dye manufacturer had their own special recipe, and these complex multi-step formulas were really closely guarded. Despite all this, we do have one record that gives us some shady details. See, Pliny the Elder, an author, naturalist, and naval officer in ancient Rome, described the process in the 1st century AD as something like this. After isolating the mucus glands, they were salted and left to ferment for 3 days. Next came the cooking, which was done in tin or possibly lead pots on a moderate heat. This continued until the whole mixture had been boiled down to a small fraction of its original volume. On the 10th day, the dye was tested by dipping in some fabric. If it emerged stained with the desired shade, it was ready to go. But here's where things get both a lot sadder and a lot stinkier. Viewers, you've been warned. See, each snail in this process only contained a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of mucus. Because of that, it could literally take up to 10,000 snails to get a single gram of dye. 250,000 for a single ounce. So in order to make enough dye to satisfy the huge demands, dye makers of Tyrian purple waded through shallow waters, collecting billions of snails, extracting and crushing their dye sacs and leaving their sad little snail bodies to rot outside where it was manufactured. As one can imagine, as a snail lover myself, this makes me very sad. As one can also imagine, literal billions of snails left out in the sun all day means that the process of making Tyrian purple wasn't just incredibly tedious, it was also incredibly rank, smell-wise. Not really the kind of sun-dried delicacy you'd want on your pizza. Or maybe you would, you sick freak. But the vast scope of these operations is also extremely interesting, because many people consider Tyrian purple to be the first chemical industry in global history. And when all of the snail violence and sun-dried snail making was said and done, people were left with a pigment that was worth triple the cost of the same weight of gold. So at this point, you might be like, surely there was a better, easier way to make purple here. And to that I would say no. Not really. See, here's the thing about purple. We see it in nature a lot, but it's actually an extremely difficult color to preserve in a dye or pigment. Because of its rarity and its incredible price tag, Tyrian purple quickly rose to fame as the ultimate symbol of power and wealth. And even in the height of production, it was extremely expensive. Take, for example, a Roman toga. To get a toga dyed in Tyrian purple, it would cost around 3 to 4 years of wages for most people, or around $150,000 in today's money. And it would take around 1.1 million snails. But if you were to get one of those today, with the dye supplies that we have of Tyrian purple, it would cost you about $500,000, give or take. Now, to put this in even more perspective, it was often said that Cleopatra loved Tyrian purple so much that she would frequently dye her ship's sails with it, which, after a stupid amount of research and math, likely cost around $3 million per sail in today's money. Dye? More like buy, because with those prices, yeah, I'm just gonna go back to my mud brick house and eat my unleavened bread and pray a plague of frogs attacks you for your sins. For a long time, a lot of this information was completely lost to history, because we weren't even sure, and we're still not totally sure, how to even make this stuff. Most processes and methods were completely lost to history by the 16th century. And because finding well-preserved textiles is pretty rare in archaeology, for a long time we weren't even sure what it looked like. That is, until 2002, when archaeologists in Kotna, a palace on the desert's edge in modern-day Syria, discovered a strange dark patch on the ground where they were working. Now, my first instinct when I see a mysterious damp spot is usually not to come closer and investigate further. It's usually to pretend I didn't see it, especially if it has a certain colorful tinge to it. Fortunately, that patch was not in fact pea, but Tyrian purple. And it was the first extant sample of Tyrian purple seen in over 2,000 years. And we've been trying to replicate it ever since. And by we, I mostly mean this one guy. See, for the past 18 years, this guy, Muhammad Hassan Nouria, has made it his life's mission to try and recreate these pigments as close to the original as possible. And while he's still super secretive about his exact methods, true to ancient dye maker form, he's living proof that the last art of snail goo may not be quite as lost as we think it is. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us back to my little jaunt across the United States to New York City to buy some of this ridiculously expensive stinky snail paint. This is Kramer Pigmente, a small art company founded in 1977. And in the 48 years that they've been around, they've had one major goal: finding, making, and selling the world's oldest, most obscure, and most forgotten paint pigments. And trust me when I say that Kramer is stuffed full of historic paints and pigments. Some of these, like vermilion and Naples yellow, are dangerously toxic, while others, like stildegrain, lizard stone, and deadhead, are more just unusual. But undoubtedly, the crown jewel of the shop is what sits in this tiny, unassuming bottle. So let's whip out this tiny sample of dye, test the color, and see if Tyrian purple is really worth the insane price tag. Now, the first thing you might have noticed is that this container is actually almost empty, and there's a simple reason for that. This is the most expensive pigment in the world, but I do not have the most expensive budget in the world. The other thing I immediately noticed upon transferring it to a different container for better visibility was how incredibly dark this pigment is. Because of that, I was really hoping that I could get away with not mulling it and just pulling out some of the pigment using oil on a swatch card, but as it turns out, this pigment is incredibly finicky, and that, frankly, did not work at all. So it was time to go to plan B. I initially didn't want to mull this pigment because I didn't want to waste any of it, but I think I came up with a clever solution to make sure that we didn't waste any of this precious, precious, expensive pigment. I started by mulling the pigment exactly the way I usually would, by adding a tiny, tiny bit of oil and working that in with a palette knife before going in with the muller itself and breaking up those particulates as much as I possibly could to really let that color shine. And after I felt like it was fully mulled, I decided to just do a little bit on a very, very tiny swatch card to try and get all of the pigment that I could onto that one card before going in and adding a little bit more oil and repeating the process on a bunch of different swatch cards until the pigment was completely gone from both the muller and the glass palette. This made it so that I wasn't wasting any of the super expensive snail goo. As for the color, all I can say is wow. I don't feel like it translates very well over the screen, but trust me when I say it is incredible, because you can literally see the shift between this bluish purple color and a true purple, and then a little bit of a warmer tone that comes in. Now, I ended up having a lot of these extra cards, so I will be doing a raffle down in the comments, and I'll be sending 3 of these cards to you guys. And now for the most important part of the video. Oh. It's like... It really is like rotting fish, kind of. Like you spent time on the beach and something was dead there. Oh, we got a match. It's pretty stanky. Not as bad as Indian yellow, though. Ultimately, whether or not you think Tyrian purple is worth it, or whether or not you like the color at all, it's a huge part of both art history and the history of humanity itself that's often overlooked and forgotten. But when we take the time to delve into forgotten pigments like this, it can help us to learn a lot more, not just about art, but also about ourselves. And speaking about learning about ourselves and humanity, we're gonna delve a lot into that in the next video, where I'll be discussing the deadliest paint in all of history. Spoiler alert, it probably isn't the one you're thinking of. Thanks again to Hungry Minds for sponsoring this video, and as always, thank you so much to all of my amazing patrons. If you want to support the work that I'm doing to provide free art history content, please support me on Patreon. It would mean the world to me. And we do art history live streams every other week. Hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you next time. Bye! I got this necklace for 50 cents at the thrift store. In the ancient Phoenician city of Tyre. Is it Tyre? Is it Tyre?
Tyre.
That's really awkward. How you doing?